Hey folks, we're getting a good start early today, so let me check my signal here real quick, and we will launch into some more map production today. So give me a hot second here, checking my signal. Production today. So all right, hey, we just hit episode 100 of producing this adventure, so that's a little ridiculous. And thanks a lot for being around. So let's see where we are at. You know, if you follow me on Twitter, I've just posted that I'm live on Twitter. So to find out in the future if I am live, you are certainly most welcome to follow me on Twitter at Phil Kearney. But a more reliable method is to like, subscribe, and hit the share button. I do this 6 days a week, Monday through Saturday in the mornings, as well as occasionally at lunch in the evenings, depending on what my timing and schedule permits. Who am I? I'm Phil. Hi. I create PDFs for 5e Dungeons & Dragons that I publish on the DMsGuild. There is a slew of my work in the description down below that you can check out. When I publish something, it's 100% preview from cover to cover for you to read the content that you're looking at. Make sure it's something that you're interested in. If it does, certainly purchasing it is appreciated. There's about 120 illustrations throughout those books that are available for you to view, and we'll be producing more similar artwork here as well. For example, this cover that we produced for the Crystals of Mabar adventure that we're currently working on. This we produced on stream like around episode 40, I want to say. And then we're also doing all of this cartography for the adventure that will be as part of the asset map that you'll be able to use when you purchase the adventure when it goes live on DMsGuild as well. So, yeah, so we're building this thing, and when it's done, and then we'll publish it. So we're currently going through edits. We've got our first pass of edit through probably about halfway through the adventure at this point. So it wouldn't surprise me if we weren't complete with post-edit manuscript revisions maybe by April or so. No pressure, because we got a lot on our plate with other projects as well. So I don't mind the slow brew, but I'm going to be excited once this gets completed, because just breaking this thing up into a page-by-page turner, it's going to be really fun. So let's just get into today, shall we? We've got stuff on our plate. We got time to do it. We've got a clock. We're going to set a 20-minute timer, as we normally do, to make sure I don't get pinwheeled into any obsessions or just mashing on something, spinning my wheels. Artists like us, we tend to fall into little eddies of mincing on specific details that the 20-minute timer helps make sure I can pull myself out of that. If I become unaware that that's what I'm doing, then the timer is an opportunity for me to become aware of it. So, what are we doing right now? Well, right now we are. Let's see. We got the initial outline for all of the buildings revised. We get to fill in all this stuff with evil. So we'll get to that. But where we are right now, I think I want to start. Let's see what this button does. What does this do? You know what? Oops, I'm on the wrong layer. That would explain a lot better. There we go. Marching ants are only on one side of the wall. It's a good sign. So why don't I just be cheeky and well, let's see what that button does. That button does pretty good. Yeah. All right, so let's just do that, and we can start off with getting rid of this barrier. Very good. Oops, wrong button. Let's try this one. Yeah, okay. That's the way to do it. One, 2, 3, 4. Uh-oh, you're broken. Does that jive? Yeah, so far that jives. Cool. Marching ants, steep beep, bop. Marching ants on both sides of the walls, that's bad news for the home team, so let's fix it. Where is our break? We has a break. Let's find, I'm gonna hit save real quick. Hey Hornetico, man, it's good to see you. Thanks for consistently showing up, my dude. Break that there. All this crappy chop. Almond Raw. I can feel my father's shoulder. It's neat that after he'd passed away, how frequently I can feel him checking in with me. It's nice, honestly. I didn't have much of a relationship with him once I grew up and went my own way. But it's nice to feel. Not even like he's checking in. It's just more like he's hanging out, and I love that. I used to hang out with my dad all the time when I was in high school and in college when I was home. I did community college for a while, and then I did university as well. And while I was in community college, I lived at home. And I would hang out with him, smoke cigarettes, talk shop, listen to politics and radio and stuff like that. And spent a lot of time with him just talking. And I think a lot of his ethics, his business ethics kind of seeped into me. He was always a manager. And in the Navy, he was high enough rank that he would... When he did active duty, he would command a destroyer class ship. Depending on, like, a lot of times he'd tank out to Japan and just run exercises out in the China Sea. But he was familiar with and comfortable in leading, 120 some odd men on a $700 million boat. So it's so he had a lot of just built-in do's and don'ts about how you treat people and while I don't, it's debatable how successfully he translated those leadership skills into leading his own home. At least from a business and small group perspective, I feel like I gleaned a lot. Like, I don't think I'd be nearly the DM that I am if I hadn't spent so much time with him, just talking about treating people underneath, like within my authority. Because let's admit, a DM has authority at the table because they're the ones that decide if the story is going to happen or not. So they have a lot of authority. Whether or not they're leaders or not is another question, because you can have authority without leadership. But it's often that leadership falls to the DM simply because they have that authority. Most people equate authority with leadership, but that's not necessarily true. But since it's an assumed grab on power, learning, I think it really benefited me personally to have voluntarily stepped into the role of being a dungeon master as early as I had in my life in the hobby, because I don't see well, right? So I've got handicaps here that really prevented me from like doing sports and stuff like that. So I didn't have a real good opportunity growing up to experience what it's like to be part of a team, or to experience that leadership follower dynamics. But D&D provided it. And I think over time, although it's not really discussed outside of our own circles, I would say that time invested in D&D sets people up to be significantly to perform significantly better in a corporate environment where you have small team groups with specific goals that needs to have a procedure to produce a favorable outcome. And that's very much what role-playing games are about, is a small team establishing a goal that they have to follow specific procedures as guided by the game to create predictable outcomes that you are attempting to manifest, as it were, which isn't very different from like sales goals in an agency that is attempting to hit certain revenue marks, and there's procedures you follow to be able to process a successful sale, and blah 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 blah. So I think a lot of that leadership and following a process is something that D&D really just makes. I mean, if you're a student of the craft, then you probably know this stuff. But even if you're just a beer and pretzel, you're still having to figure out how to, get along to go along and not get punted from the group. I don't remember specifically where it was listed. It was when someone was doing one of the one of the old original, like, first edition AD&D read-throughs that were talking about dealing with difficult players, and it was all handled in world, in that you aren't identifying the problem as coming from the player. You're identifying that the player is portraying a difficult character, so you're never really commenting on that player directly. But his advice, Gygax's direct advice was, if there's a character in the party that's causing unrest, and not even pointing the finger at the player and their behavior, but if there's a character that is misbehaving, then the team has the right to not adventure with that character anymore. So you aren't kicking the player out of the group, you're forcing them to retire and replace their character with a better personality. It's like, you can be a dick in real life if you want, but if you're at our table, you're going to portray a character that gets along with the team and is an ally that the team can rely on to help. Otherwise, you have to make a new character and try again. So they're never gaining experience. So they're never making any progress. But this is also in a game environment where not everyone gained levels at the same time. You had to pull your own weight. And if you're lagging behind, that's okay because the rewards are larger. You'll catch up eventually. So it's a really fun solution that the game's goals reinforced. Now that we've in 5e we've pretty much stripped away the means, like it's becoming more story-driven goalposts, where if you sing the song and do the dance, then you're going to gain the level, and that kind of shuts down the opportunity to use that kind of tactic to enforce acceptable behavior from players. So it's a real shame how it. Well, let's frame it differently than that. Let's say it's fascinating how self-aware and self-reinforcing the mechanics of original D&D really were. That when we're building new editions and stripping out those mechanics, like what social order are we disrupting that had previously been established that is no longer relevant? That, I think, is just really, really just fascinating. I'm going to do this real quick and run a liner. Let's select the inverse. And then let us modify and contract by 1. Everything should still be lined up. Yeah, everything is still lined up super good inside there. So let's do this. There's a mild, very you can see it here. There's a very mild gap between this color and the black of the wall that is offsetting. So by selecting the area outside of the wall space and then inverting it, it hugs up against the outside of the black border. And then by contracting the size of the selected space by 1 pixel, you can see here that we're now on the inside of that black wall, so we can safely scrub along the inside here and get rid of that little space. So that's what I'm in the process of doing right now. It's a mincy sort of bookkeeping kind of activity. To do this at all, like, it's not a high priority. It doesn't have a large impact on the map, but filling this in like this, it is going to allow me to see, like, if we have weird knots like this that exist, I can iron those things out. So, plus this is what the muse is telling me to do, and I do what I'm told. That's the agreement that we have. I do what the muse says when she says to do it, and she keeps pushing the pixels. I don't even have to worry about it. It's so nice to just be able to surrender your skill set to something that feels like it wants to benefit you. Do. Beep 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 beep. And then I can use the same wall language that we have here. This same language, we can just fill in all these gaps. Since this place is carved out of stone, it's going to have that same stoner language. We'll get to all of that. I want to film these middle pieces first, and then I'll get to that. trying to think, how do I, like, all the other topside maps like are super minimalistic without any large blocks of black. It's just line art that's separating one area from another, and I'm wondering if that's something I want to keep or not for this underground area. Like, if I were to, like currently this is the line art for this area. I'll get rid of that. Like, this is literally the line art. I'm thinking I want to add some weight to this interior enclosed space, which would mean I'd have to add weight to the other interior closed spaces. Some sort of like if I use solid black, you're starting. Well, I mean, if you're using a laser printer, it's just a laser, so it's not like you're gonna wear out the crystal or anything. But still, it's. I feel like I want something internal inside here to help define that language a little bit more in black and white. I'm still mincing over it, but the project isn't done yet. It isn't published, and even if it was, I could still go back in and change it if I want to. That is the glory of PDFs. So we're going to. Do I even need? Yeah, I do. And this one is all good already all the time. Cool. So we just do this, make this an easier job. Do like that. I like how this is looking, though. It's looking pretty freaking cool. Almost done here. And then we'll get back to fleshing out stuff. And that should be sufficient. Hey, timely timer, let's keep it going. Right on. I'm not ready to hit those stairways yet. I might hit these stairways today. We'll see. Not quite there. They're in my periphery, though. I'm thinking about them. I'm not quite there yet. Where are we at? How are we doing? Fix over here. This is, I mean, the biggest lift we're going to have here is the interior wall texture, which honestly is probably going to be a shitload of fun to do. And then the crystal grit. So we get to leave like wherever these piles are. That's where we get to leave piles of grit. It's like this is really helping lay down where we want piles of crystals and Vulpina to accumulate inside the map. Use that as my base inspiration, and then you know, further pollute the floor from there. So there is a lot of goodness already being, like, this isn't going to be a very heavy, like this, like all of this area in here, this is all a clean air. So like I don't, other than some cobblestone coloring, there's not a lot I got to do with it. This map is going to end up being a much lighter lift than any of the other three were, because there's so much less language. So this is me building confidence in myself. Self-talk is important. So I will you know what I need to do is push these back like that, so you guys have better, so you guys can, you know, see drop downs and stuff like that. If I interesting footnote, if I leave the canvas as the top layer, you don't see like menus, like little pop-out menus. Like I just activated my. You shouldn't see that. Yeah, you guys aren't seeing the little pop-out menu. But if I drop the full, if I make the full screen a higher position in my stack of visible stuff, and I put the Photoshop canvas and the Photoshop window capture at the bottom layer, when I do this, now you can see these little pop-up menus. You couldn't see that a moment ago because of the way that the OBS system captures windows and the hierarchy. That's what that yep, it went away. So that's what this window capture screen does. It not only grabs these side rails over here. I think I'm doing this right. Am I doing this right? Yeah. So you can see all these. You can see the toolbar. You can see the window, like the frame windows, and you can see these pop-up windows. So that makes it a lot more useful. So pro tip: if you're doing stream Photoshop, you want to have a full screen visible, so you can capture all that information just as metadata for people that are trying to figure out how you're doing stuff. If you're providing any kind of a tutorial process and whatever it is that you're doing, having these little pop-ups available by having full screen function available makes for a superior presentation if you can, you know, keep control of what's on your other what's visible on your other windows. So where's I at? Oh yeah, like, subscribe, tag along. We do this every day, Monday through Saturday, unless I'm on vacation or someplace out of town, or you know, or an EMP takes out our city or something like that. Until that happens, we're good to go over here. But we're looking at water right now. And the water that we have, it's underneath the layer of the walls, so I'm safe to do pretty much whatever I want in this space. So I think what I want to do, let's not fuck up. How about that? Let's start with not fucking up. Add a separate layer. Just lay down a field of black here to get pushed. That's a good starting spot, right? This is really where I wanted to get to today, working on the water. Wrong. Let's make a smaller eraser there, shall we? Thank you. I don't know. We are currently just experimenting with shape and see how things pan out and do things like this. Kind of similar to what we have going on over here, these little bubbles that accumulate. I feel like with this shoreline being pushed, we'd have something similar like that. At least that's the language that we're going with for now until, you know, we find something better. So far, our instincts have been pretty good on producing cool little visuals with this stuff so far. So I'm just going to keep following my gut here. I don't want to get too far ahead of myself. want to make sure that the way that we're producing this water is going to be consistent further down into the puddle. Stuff like this. Might make a lot of sense. It's a real fine way to start. Boy, there's a lot of energy moving through me this morning. I don't know. Whew. I'm not sure where it's coming from, but it's strong. It's probably going to be a hell of a day. So my advice to anybody that is tuning in would be patient with people today. I think there's a lot of people that are messing with a lot of stuff that's bubbling up from inside of them that they aren't able to properly acknowledge yet, and it's going to cause, if I'm feeling this correctly, it's going to cause a lot of confusion and potential fear among people that you're encountering that are potentially having to face things inside of them that they weren't aware were there. So they're having revelations about what their behavior is like towards other people, and depending on their emotional awareness, they'll be able to accept, or most likely, if they aren't aware, fight what it is that they're experiencing. So there could be a lot of residual backlash coming out of people around you as they settle into this new knowledge that they're gaining about themselves that they are not happy with. I have no idea where this is coming from, so don't ask me for paperwork, because I have no idea. This is just what my muse is asking me to share right now. That people are having some real internal crises right now. And being patient with them as they transition through this awareness process is the kindest thing that we can do for people. Give them space and give them quiet comfort and assurance that you haven't left them. If you haven't, but if you are leaving them, be very firm in your language where you're not leading them on. So they can learn to be dependent on themselves instead of looking to you, since you won't be there for them. But there's stuff that's moving. I can feel the movement. I don't know the cause of it. The cause doesn't really even matter. It's just it's a portrayal to help build a consistent theme. Like our reality, our psyche isn't built well for cold what is it? What's the term that they use in film production? Like a hard edit, like a scene cut. Yeah, scene cuts. We as creatures are incapable of properly processing scene cuts. So we can't transition from like this conversation to this conversation without having a connective path that we can see ourselves move from this conversation into this conversation, or like from this room to this room, or this state to this state, this job to this job. Like we have to have a narrative process that moves us through time space from one event to another. We have to have cohesion. And the only time we can release ourselves from that requirement is when we're dreaming, and when we are like super out of our brain stoned, where we can just discount the lack of continuity to that was one hell of a trip. Those are incredible drugs. You don't have to hold yourself accountable for that consistent, smooth narrative, but when that is being disrupted at a larger level, where we're moving from like there's different types of movement in reality. There's physically pushing ourselves in a 3D space from one GPS coordinate position to another, from one square to another. That's like our like default movement. But then there's also topics of conversation and what we're paying attention to, that social and exploration pillar, as it were, of adventure, where we are transitioning our attention. We may be in the same physical square, but we're changing our perspective about what are we paying attention to. So our focus will shift. And then inside of that, even more subtle, is a shift in our emotions, which is often triggered by a change of perspective, which again, changing what you're looking at is most easily changed by where you're standing. What square, what your GPS coordinates are will determine what you can visualize around you, and mostly based on what we can perceive around us is the narrative that goes along with what emotions it is that we feel. And then beyond what we feel, we have what are we thinking, or what is our beliefs about what we are feeling. If I am looking at this person and I am feeling anger, then my internal dialogue is going to start creating a narrative about why am I angry at this particular person. And if there's somebody I do not know, then most likely the narrative is going to lean on whatever it is that I am observing them performing right now. If I have a history of this person, referential information, that I have a log of experiences in this person's presence where I am also experiencing the similar emotion, in this case anger, then I am able to create a narrative where I am angry at this person, still angry at this person, or seeing this person makes me angry because of what I remember they did to me, X, Y, Z. That's a smooth transition with a constant stream of you being able to tie together physical location, emotions, and beliefs that you have, all filtering into each other. So the reason I'm bringing all this up is when somebody is going through a paradigm shift and they're becoming aware of things, emotions and feelings inside of them that they didn't have previously, they're just suddenly feeling something. It's our habit to default to our memories, for lack of a better reference point. If there's no one around me and there's no events that are occurring that would give reason for me to be angry or frustrated or depressed or guilty or shameful or whatever it is that I'm feeling, if there's no event that's happening around me that can be immediately pointed to as the cause for the emotions that I have, then I have to start getting imaginative about why would this emotion exist, because we're taught out of habit that emotions are stirred by what we're observing. If you don't like somebody, leave them, and so your emotional state will change. But that's not true. If you leave somebody, your emotional state is completely separate from your GPS position, and your beliefs are technically completely separate from the observations that you're having. So you can, and you hear this like in Buddhism and stuff like that, you can reverse engineer these things, and that whatever my beliefs about myself are, and this is transcendentalism as well, whatever my beliefs are ultimately will dictate and guide what my emotional state is. And my emotional state will help guide me to be in a GPS coordinate position that will be in harmony with that emotion and that belief. I will find where I can best represent these feelings, as it were. But that's not accurate. You're gonna have beliefs. You're gonna be you're gonna be in a position. You're gonna have a GPS position at all times. B, you're going to feel an emotional state at all times. C, you're always going to have a belief or assumption or thoughts about not even anything specifically, but you're always going to have thoughts and you're always going to have beliefs present. But none of those three things are specifically attached to each other. You can be having a thought about something, like here's a great example. I'm in severe pain. I am located, my GPS is in a hospital bed. The emotion that I feel is dread. The physical sensation that I am feeling is severe pain in my abdomen. I have an ulcer that's ruptured and it's threatening to kill me. So I am in the hospital, and so I have fear and pain, but my partner is with me. So my belief is, I don't know if I will survive this or not, but my partner loves me and cares for me. Look, they are present here. These are three unrelated feelings. All three of these modes of existence are completely separate from each other. I could be at the beach and playing ball, or just jogging or whatever, just hanging out with my partner, and I could still have the belief that my partner loves me and has my back, even though I'm now in a scenario that's not the hospital, and the emotion that I feel is exhilaration, fun, or whatever it is that's going along with us being on the beach. And now all of a sudden the emotion flips. and I am now feeling anger. So am I angry at the beach? Like, did the beach do me something wrong? I was having a blast with my partner a moment ago, but now I'm angry. Did my partner do something wrong? Or are they doing the exact same thing that they had done a moment ago, but I am now experiencing a different emotion? Am I going to project upon my partner? Or am I going to project upon the beach that I am angry and it is its fault? Is my narrative going to be, this is your fault, I am angry, so I need you to change something? Or I have to leave this beach now because I am angry. This beach has angered me to the point where I must leave, because if I stay here, I can't not be angry. A lot of people having to change the location to change their state of mind are just not really identifying that the emotions and the beliefs that we have change just as easily as our GPS coordinates when we physically move. We can emotionally move, and our beliefs can move. So saying all of that is just providing context towards I have the sensation that there are things that are moving right now. And while that excites me normally, because it's an indication that there's something inside of me that shifted that I don't need to be afraid of, so I can approach it from a state of mind of curiosity of, I wonder what just shifted. And I'm learning to disconnect my emotions from my presence and my thought patterns, so that I can hold in my head, for example, my partner is demonstrating my belief about my partner is that she wants me to be safe, and that she has my back and wants to work with me, and that is to our mutual benefit, to support each other, regardless of whether I'm happy, sad, angry, excited, whatever. So I can hold this belief about my partner or the people in my life or my job or my city or whatever it's in. I can hold a consistent belief about my relationship with these things and not let my emotions impact my belief about that particular subject matter. Just because I'm suddenly angry when I think about my father doesn't mean I'm still angry at my father. You say I'm angry at my father, it's because I have had a series of associations where I have been angry and I've been thinking about my father. That's the insidiousness of the whole system, or the genius, is that you can have, like, we can't control what we think about any more than we can control the emotions that we have. And we feel like we have control over which direction, like what our GPS coordinates are. We feel like I'm choosing to sit here, or I'm choosing to stand in this space, but we know that's not true, because we often find ourselves getting up and going somewhere and talking to somebody we had absolutely no intention on doing a moment ago. But yet here we are, lifting up out of our seat and walking over and opening our mouth and making noise that this person is receiving as some sort of string of ideas that they're responding to now. And I didn't want to talk to this person, but here I am talking to them. So obviously this was something I was going to do. And we don't have the same, we don't provide the same acknowledgement and weight of importance with these events. Like when we find it, we just kind of shrug it off and laugh about it. Because like here I am getting up and walking over and having this conversation. Like for instance, like somebody I'm crushing on, all of a sudden I find myself motivated and, offering a pickup line to see if they want to engage with me, to flirt or romanticize with me. And either yes or no, I either get rejected or I'm successful. And the emotions that I have as a result of that pickup line, of either victory or whatever, those emotions aren't a result of the cause of getting up, because I didn't even want to get up and talk to her. That just happened, despite myself. I did not want to talk to that girl. I feel fear. I do not want to be present in fear when I am talking to this person. Yet here I am walking over to this person, and the sense of fear grows stronger and stronger. And then what's the classic trope? I open my mouth, I say the thing, I'm terrified. I have zero control over what the thing is that I'm saying right now, but for some stupid reason, she's into it. And she responds favorably, and then the fear dissipates. And now I'm just excited. The fear was excitement unrealized. It was that stage fright that we feel, which is just raw anticipation of something happening. But even that is a narrative that we're providing about that sequence of events that led us into that conversation that we're now excited about what might happen next. We weren't consciously controlling getting up. We weren't consciously control of that emotion. And in this too common narrative of our life, we aren't even in control of what it is that we're saying when we get there. We are carried through this moment into a chaotic state of physicality, emotions, and beliefs all just colliding at the same time. And it transforms into something new, a potential like new relationship, a date or something, or whatever resulting permutation can come from, like, rejection or whatever the variables are as a result of that conversation. Something completely random could happen, like a car hits somebody while you're trying to pick up this chick, and now nobody's thinking about your pickup line. They're thinking about, oh my god, that person just literally got hit by a truck. I feel traumatized. Like, what a weird shift of narrative that suddenly became. Like, your emotions, your thought patterns, what you thought was the next possible result of you opening your mouth to talk to this person, all that has just been completely sidelined because a bus is just tipped over and a bunch of people are hurt. Like, it's completely derails all three. Like, the only thing that remains consistent there is your GPS location, but there's a decent chance that you are moving now, either towards them to help or away from them to call for more help. You could just stand there, but then the motion becomes, I pull out my phone and I record it. Maybe you don't even know why you're recording it. You're just doing it because it's what feels right for you to do. And, well, here I am, I'm recording it. That is also beyond your control. So having said all that, this is because whatever this thing that's moving inside of me, I am aware. I've sensed this feeling often enough that I can tell it is like an alarm of some sort. Like, it's an alert message. I've been pinged that there are things that are happening right now. And so the muse says, here's this thing that's happening. I'm going to spout a bunch of words here for the next 15 minutes. And you're going to push pixels while I do it. So that's what's been happening here. But there's no emotion. The emotion that I often associate, or the state of mind that I often associate with this is mild discomfort, because I don't know what I'm going to talk about or if it makes any sense. So there's also the low-key worry of, this is a weird focus of conversation for the type of streaming that I'm doing. It's not D&D. It's not art. It's me talking about emotional processing or associating physical space with thought patterns and emotions that we experience, which is kind of off flavor for the channel. So there's a low intensity nervousness about I'm off script, like this isn't what it's for. But I've also have this craziness about the muse, because that is something that's just my own narrative. That the insanity that's fed through my head is connected to the pixels that I push. Like, I have no good reason to be able to produce art like this, other than there's something that just compels me to push the pixels this way until the thing looks right. I don't have any control over that any more than I have control of getting out of my seat and walking over and starting to talk to that person, even though I definitely did not want to. It's the same thing as I'm not necessarily happy about being compelled to get up and push pixels every morning and talk about random stuff, but it is what I do. So I have to disconnect from myself a reason, like a cause effect from that. So I think the most interesting thing about my world is how much I am actively attempting to disconnect cause from effect, and instead just really be into what the moment of what this is. I've had a lot of success in my life of letting go of control and letting myself be guided in those three planes to whatever it needs to be. Like I don't shy away from whatever emotional baggage that I carry. I let it move through me. I attempt to not put too much weight into the thoughts and narratives that I build inside of myself, because I know so much of it is self-destructive because of how I got raised. It's a belief I have that my own thought processes are ultimately self-destructive, and that whatever internal dialogue that I have about myself is going to be negative. So what's a good solution for me is to turn off that stream of consciousness, or maybe become aware of something that can replace it, which is kind of where the muse came in, where she has her own thoughts and her own decisions that she wants to make, and she can make them through me. So it's kind of a form of, I guess, personality disassociation, where I'm setting down what I think is my default personality and traits, and allowing this other thing to override them to present information in a format that I personally wouldn't do in normal circumstances. But it's the intuition is pushing one word after the next, which gets chained into comments and thoughts that aren't necessarily have anything to do with what's actually going on around me. It's just how things are being, chained together. This is interesting. So, having said all of that, there's weird energy that's being moved. It may only be me that's feeling it, but history tells me, just in conversations I have with other people, that when I have these feelings, other people have had weird feelings or end up having a weird day. So this is my weather forecast for the day, that there is weird energies afloat. And so if you find yourself in odd conversations, or if you are confronting feelings that you are not used to confronting, or if you're having memories that you haven't thought of for a long time, just be aware that we're moving through a new paradigm, and that things are being cleared from our system. There's a purging of lightness. Things that are heavy are being dropped off of our frames, so that we can float more easily from these different points. And it's not going to there's not a lot of rationality that goes on behind it. So be used to the irrationality of whatever it is that we're going to be experiencing over the next 48 to 72 hours. Your world could become very unrational, but this is the nature of a hard scene cut, where you are inside of one set of circumstances of physical location, emotional feelings, and assumptions and thought patterns that can suddenly flip to completely something different. And the more you are relaxed with that process, the less of a jump scare it becomes. I find, this is related, when my gal calls me to let me know that she's on her way to hang out with me, or is like, hey, why don't you come by, whatever it is, it almost always catches me off guard, and like it's a jump scare for me. Or like when she knocks at my door, like I know she's en route, I know she's coming over, we already saw it. It's like, hey, I'm gonna swing by, let's hang out and let's watch some TV or whatever for a while. it always jump scares me because I fall so into whatever work it is that I'm doing that I tend to blot out all the externalities. So when my phone rings or my door gets knocked on, it pulls me out of whatever reverie I'm in. It's so disruptive. It's a jump scare for me. But it's something I expected. I knew it was coming, but I fall so far into whatever work I'm doing and I hyper focus on it. So when I get pulled out of that, it is a disruption. And it just makes me, at this point, it just makes me laugh all the time. It's because it just so consistently happens. It's just really a funny commentary on how committed I am to whatever it is that I'm doing, even though I'm going to have to disconnect from it, and like in a minute or whatever, whenever she shows up. It still amuses me that I fall so far into focus on whatever it is that, typically it's painting, but a lot of times it's me. I get jump scared more when I'm writing, because I get locked inside of these like thought strings. I maintain a couple different potential like sentence structures at the same time, and I'm trying to parse between them to see how they connect and pan out into a cohesive thought that I can add to the adventure to supplement or whatever it is that I'm working on. And that eats up so much of my mental energy that when it's disrupted, it's a jump scare for me, because it disconnects all of that focus and scuttles it, and then pulls it back to whatever the event is that's pulling me out of that reverie. And it's always just a big shock to my heart. I find that fascinating. So once again, Phil, you convinced me that you could have been a mystic in another path. Right on, man. I have not died a number of times in my lifetime. So when my vision is this bad, I get into accidents a lot. I fall off cliffs that I didn't know were there. I've fallen off of one cliff as a kid. I almost fell off another one in college. I walked out in front of a car in college that I didn't see, and the driver had no idea I was going to do that, so they didn't bother slowing down. So but it didn't kill me. So I've had a number of falls, and just when you're really, really blind and you've yet figured out how to navigate through space with the limitations that you have, you get into accidents. And so I've had my head hit a lot. So it could just very well be that I have received so many concussions at this point that I can't rely on a consistent narrative moving me from one moment to the next, because in my life I've had skips of reality where I'm walking at this point, and the next I wake up broken and wounded, and depending on my age, crying profusely in horrible pain. And like I have snap cuts like that. People that go through traumas can do that. It's normally a horrible, painful accident that causes those hard scene cuts where you lose consciousness and you wake up again. This is a lot less intense, but when I had, if you look at my very early streams on this channel from a year ago, I didn't have teeth because I won't bore you with the details, but I needed to have my teeth replaced with a permanent bridge. Turned out great, but they knocked me out during that process. And my gal tells me they don't let you leave after being knocked out. So I come back to consciousness. My teeth are gone. All the painkillers are still in effect. But by the time I got out of the dental clinic and into her car, and I sat down and I put my seatbelt on, my brain triggered that I'm safe now. And I just cried and bawled and screamed. And I don't remember it happening. I remember getting into the car, but then I blacked out. And when I came to again, we were almost back to my home. And she tells me that I've been screaming and bawling and crying since I've gotten in the car, and I don't remember it. But the best narrative we have so far is that my body was aware that they were pulling teeth out of my head, and that I was having things done to me that I had no control over, but my body was logging awareness of. And even though the drugs made me blank out and disconnect from that experience happened, and now my body is beginning to process it. so that is a very mundane example of having a hard scene cut where you're in one state of existence and then suddenly you're in another, and you have to your rational mind wants to create a stable narrative as to why did this happen. So the most stable narrative I have is that the body logged this thing, but in reality, it can just simply be a matter of I've skipped time to another location that I don't have any conscious awareness of, and now I'm in severe pain, and I'm missing things from my body. So I've been the victim of something. And depending on what your history is, you can connect with that victimization, and then it pulls up emotional states from when you were, earlier in your timeline, when you also weren't able to physically stop what was happening to you, and things were taken from you, and you have to endure that. So sometimes I wonder if that experience that I had was me connecting some energy to things that have happened to me that made me black out. So it's interesting, the narratives we have for ourselves, but it's the larger point here was that I can feel that these things are moving around right now, so there's a decent chance that people are going to be experiencing stuff that they had repressed, or they're going to be experiencing things that are foreign to them that they're kind of like floating through. I have there's this idea about memes, and that they're there's this energetic skin that wraps around people that separates our three-dimensional reality from higher dimensional awareness, like it's a filter that's put onto us to cut us off from this higher perspective that would deny us the emotional meat space trauma that we're going through as part of a for lack of a better words, an amusement ride. So I guess the punchline there is if shit goes sideways on you, it's not your fault. You didn't do anything wrong. It's part of the ride. This is the part in the roller coaster where you take a dip and spin. It's gonna feel like your heart is sinking. And that is the best point for you to let go and just start screaming. Because if you aren't scared by it, it's a hell of a ride. These memes, they're like, I guess the best way I could describe them is like a cloud. That's the running joke that my partner and I have had for the past couple years is like when you're in a pool and you're in a pool with kids and they pee in the pool and then you find yourself suddenly in a warm patch of water. It's because you're going through somebody's piss. So these floating emotions, like both my gal and I, when we drive past the airport here at SeaTac in Washington, we both get super angry, And if we aren't paying attention to where we are in relation to the airport, we will get into a fight. And when we realize, if we don't see it coming and we get caught in it, we start arguing with each other. Once we realize, like we see an airport sign, we're like, oh my god, I'm so sorry. This was not on you at all. I'm apparently there's, we're talking about things that we're angry about, but it's not something that we're actually angry at each other about. It's just we're moving through a cloud right now, and that cloud hangs over the airport. It's a place of stress and pressure and timing and demands and often, considering the state of the world right now, a loss of fulfillment. And that, like, you're supposed to get on it, but your plane's been canceled, and now you have to get a hotel room, so everything's a pain in the ass. Frustration, frustration, frustration. Anger, 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 and it just hangs like a cloud over the airport. But if you're aware of it, you don't have to get caught in it. You can have fun in the rain if you're okay with getting wet. So emotions are the same way. They drift through society like storm clouds, and they rain on us. They rain emotions onto us. So sometimes the emotions that we feel is strictly just the weather moving, which is, I guess, to say all of this boils down to this just in: emotional baggage and weather is approaching. So don't take it personally when you get wet. I guess that's what all she was trying to say. It just took a while for me to be able to get to the point, so I can do more efficiently in a future bid. But there you go. Big emotional storm flowing through right now. It might not even be in your area, but in Seattle, it certainly feels like it. We're at 720. Nice. Right now I'm just making pits. Just doing gradients and pits, transitioning from one area to another. Just like we had done in the cemetery map previously. If you want to check the past episodes, like 3 or 4 episodes back, you can see the water that we had been working on, and that we had like a base puddle, like a black splotch or a blue splotch that we would establish, kind of like we're doing right now, as just the base background, and then we have another layer on top of it like this that we can like push through something like that. And so it doesn't affect the gradient underneath it, but it makes for a really cool fade. Like that's not done, but it's cool. So I can create these different layers of like this fade pushing like this. So I can like grab this and cut it separately, and then have this here like be like a gradient like that fades in here, and then I can have this on top of it. So I can have this neat layering effect. We'll see how that pans out. Might not be the right thing to do, but it's something that can be done. And this is the setup for that. This is where it begins. Beep beep. So we'll get rid of those. Go back to our gradient. Gradient. Hmm. Let's back that down just a little bit more off the strength of that curve so that I can really just smooth that down. Smooth jazz. Ah, ah, ah. Smooth jazz. Ah, ah, ah. K-Y-O-T. The Coyote. 104.3 F. There's a radio station. It's probably still there in Arizona called the Coyote. It's all smooth jazz all the time. KYOT. Such a great call sign. Oh, that's what's going on. I'm like, why am I having problems here? Because you got a gap, son. You got a credibility gap, buddy. This stuff looks cool, man. I love doing gradients like this. This stuff is fun. Burp, burp. I probably don't have to, micromanage it as much as I am right now, but honestly, it's just fun. So I'm just going where the joy is. I've still got, it's 7:26. I still got 20 minutes. I'll cut after, yeah. This is my last 20-minute run. So here, I don't expect to make a lot of progress moving forward, but I can certainly drop in a darker blotch. Dark blotch! Darkness, then redness, then whiteness. Gotta tell you, I'm running out of stuff to do on the Martial Powers project. It is getting close to donezo. Like, I think I can just kind of ramble on as DM notes for a little bit in the text, but I'm liking how the powers are sitting. I mean, I can always mince and improve those, but I'm pretty happy where the core 140 some odd powers are sitting right now. and I like the power kits we gave to creatures on yesterday's stream in the past couple weeks. Magic items. I'm not great at making magic items. It has never been my thing. But the few that we made yesterday and another session of just making just random magic loot, I think we'll probably be able to get that point across. I think I can make a better random table for the weapon systems, or for like the different types of weapons you can choose. But I don't think that's much of a heavy lift. I think it's just a matter of putting numbers next to words. So that shouldn't be too difficult to achieve. But then it's just it's just from here on forward, I think, is just punching text into the document about, you know, how is a DM, what's the best perspective a DM can maintain if you're going to allow these powers into your table. Like, how do you as a DM not freak out at characters being able to spend mana at will to be able to get better die results, or to be able to deal more damage or whatever. Like Paladin times 2 is basically what the system is offering, which is I think a great I continue the project because I think it's a great complement to the versatility and options that full casters have, as in like point-click effects. I like how marshals have to take actions to be able to benefit from what they're doing. Like, it's like, some of the maneuvers are point and click. You know, I spend the mana, I choose this target, I do this thing to them. But so much of the powers that are offered require you to move or make an attack, or you're performing an ability check, or like these are reactions. That it's a much more like interactive do sort of thing. Like, you have to do things with this stuff. It's not just things that they themselves aren't things that you can do. They're modifying, for the most part, are modifying things that you do, and I think that is a really interesting way to express the difference between casters and marshals. Like, marshals do things, while casters are like the spells that caster, like full casters, the spells they cast are what they do, as opposed to marshals, they do things, and their class features and abilities modify what it is that they're doing. And so in that sense, I think the Martial Powers Project is staying true to the sense of, you know, being for martial characters. So I like that. I think that's interesting, and it certainly inspires towards different projects in the future, whether I go about making my own RPG or not. But I like that dichotomy. So if I were to pursue my own game, I would definitely have a delineage between modifying things I do versus modifying, like creating new options for what, like, spells and powers are things you can do. And I don't know. I'm still figuring out the language behind it, but there's that dichotomy of, I'm going to use my resource to do this thing versus I'm going to use my resources to modify this thing I'm doing. And then, like, meta magic on a sorcerer using D&D terms, is doing both. I'm using my action to do this thing, and I'm using additional resources to modify that thing, which is what's super unique about the sorcerer. The spell point sorcerer, that actually in my playlists on my channel here, like and subscribe so you can keep track of all this stuff with me. But I have a spell point sorcerer stream that I had done a few initial design development with on that document. I put it on hold for the Eberron adventure and martial powers and the Spelljammer combat and exploration supplement that we've been building. But that Spellpoint Sorcerer still lurks, and so what I think I like so much about it is unifying the sorcery points to just the general mana pool that we can cast, so you can start freely exchanging your mana for either doing things or modifying the things that you do. And so if I were to continue building out my own system in general, I think I'd probably want to use the sorcerer as like the base for like a Gishy sort of class, where you have a limited palette of spells that you can do, but you have a huge battery to modify things that you do. Like a rogue sorcerer, where you'd use your like quote unquote meta magic to modify die rolls, like we have with the power system that we already have in place. That sort of stuff, I think, is where I would want to go with it. But my current idea is to not use a D20 system at all. Like, it's completely disconnect from being a D20 game. I can Powered by the Apocalypse / World of Darkness sort of meta, where you have a dice pool and you're throwing the dice pool and you're registering results off of that pool of dice. But I think I'd want to have like only one success. Like, you only need one success. But the number of dice that you throw modify it. It's a chassis. It's a basic chassis. I should spend some time on that. Honestly, it's a fun idea. I could easily do a stream about like the basic idea of what that thing is, because I know it's peripheral to other dice pool RPGs, but I think it's a little unique in how it proposed to resolve stuff and like deal with action economy and stuff. So I think there's a lot of potential there. I'm not quite ready to present it as a whole, but I feel like I'm going to want to just do like a random stream here in the next couple weeks, and when I do, it'd probably be about the musings behind what this RPG is. But even then, it isn't something I would do I don't really have the bandwidth to do anything with it. I really hope that I don't try to add another significant project to my plate before I get the rest of this stuff out of the way. Because like all the mechanical stuff that we're doing with 5e right now is kind of a process of looking at scale and scope of character agency inside of a game space with building armies and guilds and kingdoms, and like how do those resources work, and how do we boil all that down into a unified language. And once I have that language unified, I don't have to keep using D20 at all. I can just use the concept of scaling to be able to modify any existing RPG, to use that same sense of scale to modify the type of game that you're playing, which is really where I want to go with an RPG, where the language that a character uses, that an organization uses, that a kingdom uses, that a god uses, it's all the same basic mechanic operating at different scales or efficiencies. So you can see the narrative. Like if you're using the same type of mechanics as a god, and you then that god projects itself into the body of a man or whatever creatures run around inside the normal campaign world, you're now, while you have those divine resources invested into this human body, you're now using the remaining resources you have available to perform as that creature. So you can have almost like a god-bound sort of game campaign there. Or like if you're panning out, it's like I am depicting this Caesar type hero who is an accomplished combatant in his own right, but is now using resources to command an army or even like lead an entire nation. So you're having to reallocate resources away from your own personal self and invest them into this larger scale, this larger scope. So that's the kind of way, that's the kind of thought processes that I want to have built into the RPG when I build it, which is why I'm not super gung-ho about moving forward with it yet, because we still have a couple of years worth of development to get all the different scaling mechanical language that I want to be able to do, I think, properly expressed through 5e or what will become 1 D&D by the time I finish the effort. But that's a really great acid test. Let's take the world's most popular role-playing game and then build mechanics for you to do all these other things. And now that we've been able to accomplish that through translation, let's build a game that's specifically designed to lean into those ideas of resource management and scaling and scaling the narrative and results of what you're doing. And then if we build a game that's designed around them at the core, then we're going to have a much it certainly won't just be a 5e clone. It'll be its own thing that has its own purposes that build that narrative just into it. So, but I'm happy with where with where the water is at right now. We got about 5 minutes left before I'm going to be done for the day. So I think what I want to do real quick is let's go grab the sure, let's grab the ground fort real quick. Okay, this is apparently where we're at, so let's see. Water, more water, more water. We'll call these the water layers. Water, walls. Let's do like this. How difficult is this going to be? Oh no, it's not difficult to tell at all. Fantastic. Look how close these two things are in their gradients to each other. Like I can tell here from transition to here, but look how radically different the colors are here, but how close they are on the grayscale to each other. It might be difficult for you to separate the color from the actual value of it, but I find that fascinating. That is one of the coolest things about color. I do want to do this. grit area, broken soil, cobblestone in this area. Let's go grab that map again. That doesn't feel like right at all. Hold on. Let's do that again. There we go. So what we'll do with this is we'll have the same dirt pattern. If we go back to let's go to the cemetery. That'll be a better example for those that are new. Let's get you indoctrinated real quick. So these areas here, thank you timer, stick around for another few minutes. So this out here is just like raw soil. And this in here is also raw soil. Here we have water runoff going into these puddles. But these are cobblestone paths, right? So the cobblestone is supposed to be intact, but the place is worn down heavily and it's got these crystals all over everything. So we can see that the cobblestones are being broken up. It's fatigued, but this is the soil that's underneath it, and the soil is being terraformed into this grit substance, right? So when we're down here in the laboratory, it too would have started off with all this cobblestone in these rooms. Like the whole place would have been cobblestone, but this area here is like raw Mabarite, so it is not cobblestoned anymore. It is just that gritty soil. So now this gritty soil is coming out and it's running into these cobblestone pathways, and we get to basically punch holes through it, like we had done upstairs. You know, these big tears and holes in the cobblestone, but still have, you know, chunks of it laying around. So we'll have the opportunity to play with that a little bit. We can do an underlayer of the soil and then break it up, because it would have all been cobblestone initially, but as the place fatigues and wears down, the cobblestone will break up and the soil will come through, and all the crystals and stuff, and like little pockets of Alpina and stuff like that. So that is the process that we are going through. And the soil makes sense here in the roughed areas. Where are my objects? Hold on. Yeah, so there's my clean air. So 5, 10, 15, 20. Like that. Stuff like that. Yeah, so that's our basic floor plan breakdown. You got water over here, you got raw soil here, and you got cobblestone here, and then the cobblestone is being corrupted as in the smoky areas. So, and then we have the these are the smoky areas that are cut off by the air by the air turbine over here, and all the doors that separate this this smoke from the rest of the environment. And then we have the floors that get added in. So now you can see where the smoke is at, and the smoke goes across the water as well. It's just not being indicated there. Yeah, that's roughly how this stuff gets laid down. So that's what we're working on right now. That is where we at. So I would say everything is coming along rather well so far. We'll probably next time we'll probably finish that ritual nexus. We'll take care of the stairways and the cracks throughout here and here. So the siege tower, the nexus point, and the stairway. Those are the three things that we need to fix for us to be actually finished with the line art for the map. So we'll do that. We'll work on that tomorrow. We'll start with the nexus, and then we'll just work our way. Let's work our way from here to here to here, and then this can be built to line up over the stairway that's here and the stairway that's here. stairway here, and here it straddles those points. So I just have it pulled off to the side here for convenience, since this is just that area. This is blank map space, so I built the map to have that area available. And then once we have the line art completed, and then we can do the wall texture lining, and then cobblestone, grit, crystals, doors, and we'll be done. So I could imagine us having this done by like maybe, I say these things, but I think like by Friday, not this week, but Friday next week, we could potentially be done with this place, which would be a fast freaking turnaround in comparison to the cemetery. So that's fantastic news. But yeah, we'll see if we're capable of actually producing at that speed. But if we do, then that means we'll be going into, what is our calendar? Friday. Yeah, that means that we'll be going into March, and we'll be in the Thorpe, and then we can spend like maybe 2 weeks on the Thorpe, and then we'll be done, and then we can do the vignettes that we have, the manifest zone and the forest vignettes, which is like basically like tree copses and some dilapidated buildings, and then we'll be done with all of our mapping. So we'll be done with maps probably before we're done with edits, which is fucking fantastic. Once the maps are all done, then we start doing tokens for like the undead creatures. We got ghouls and skeletons and zombies and drowned assassins, shades, and specters. So we have those 5 types of creatures that we can build tokens for. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4 different types of Emerald Claw NPCs. We've got the Ader Academy scientists, alchemists, or artificers. We have Karnath, the patrols, and then the captain. So what is that? 3, 6, 8, 12. And then we got random villagers, which is like, so that takes us like around 15. And then we have a couple different kind of like bar guests and shadow mastiffs and ropers and a couple different creatures. So we probably have like maybe like around 21, 22 creature tokens in total to do. That'll all be small scale. It's basically just character and monster art. So I don't predict those having to take a long time. But they're going to be fun as hell to do. So that's coming down the pipe pretty quickly. And once we have all the once we have the tokens done, we also have to do like the wind turbine, the door assets, campfire asset, tent, cart. It's got like 5 or so different just items. And the Vulpina, the Vulpina Lotharia spaces, like the 5-foot spaces that those things occupy. So maybe in total we have like around 25, 30 tokens to create, but they're just spot art. It's not intense. So I don't anticipate me murdering myself on that. I say that now, but I anticipate myself not being murdered over these things. But that'll go a long way towards having all that shit done. So I can see myself being done with that stuff before April. And so if the edits pan out the way that I suspect they're going to, by the time we're in April, we're going to have the final manuscript and we'll be doing layouts. And so if all these things pan out the way that we hope to, that probably means we'll be able to actually release the thing before June. Which is about where we hope we would be. So that's kind of excited, guys. Kind of excited. We're moving along. This thing keeps moving forward. So we'll see where we land at. We've still got a lot of work to do. But that's it for the day. So thanks a lot for hanging out with me, guys. Taking the journey with me. Like and subscribe. Follow me on Twitter at Phil Kearney. Bell icon, and spending some time with my other playlists. Just grabbing hours got like 135 some odd people at this point that are following along and subscribed on the YouTube channel. So this is your first time seeing this thing. Thanks a lot for showing up. If you can hit the bell, just stick around with me. Help me accumulate my 1,000+ followers so I can start monetizing this channel. That'll go a long way to making sure that I keep doing this stuff in the future, especially once I start getting into Kickstarters and building my own RPG in the future. I'd love to have a small army of folks that kind of get what we're doing here so that we can produce these things and have them launch successfully. So thanks a lot, guys. I'll see you on the other side tomorrow morning. Later.